Welcome back to Barra's Art and Design. I'm Paul John Dykes, and this week I'm delighted to be joined by Tommy Sheridan and Stephen Craig, where we will be speaking to Celtic legend Peter Grant. This is a Celtic state of mind. So Peter, we are in the heart of the Barras. Let's go back to Barfield. What's your memories of that place?
Oh, wonderful, I must admit. I went in there as a 10-year-old boy, coming along the London Road, big green double-decker, which was 65, coming from Edinburgh all the way through to Glasgow Anderson Cross, dropped me at Barfield, picked us up at Chapel Hall. Every hour and a half, if you missed that, it was a 3-hour wait in the bus. So I always remember that about Barfield. It was always one of my parents were with me because it wasn't a journey I wanted to do on my own, that's for sure. But fantastic memories. I can never think of a dull moment. Some wonderful players I played along with who never made it to the highest level. But at that particular time as kids, they were outstanding players, but more importantly, they were outstanding guys. And I still see a lot of them nowadays, which tells you a lot since that was under 12s, nearly they started.
You know, when you were at the boys' club, who were your contemporaries that we might recognise? What other players made it, Peter? Only
Archdeacon was in the team with me. Only was a big pal of mine, but I must admit, we had a really good side. It was one of these teams, you know, you bounce across as youngsters and you end up doing exceptionally well. They were all very good players in their own mind. Tony Shepherd and that dropped up to times. Tony would come up, he was the younger age group. So once I started growing a little bit, and as I say, going with the age groups, because I was fortunate enough, the way my birthday fell at that particular time, I was August the 30th, same day as Bobby Lennox, the great Bobby Lennox. And so it's August the 30th. At that particular time, the cut-off was August the 1st. So I was fortunate that I was only a month, so I could play with the younger group because of my age group. That got changed then later years to September. So I'd been playing with the older boys. And you know, physically now that can be a hell of a difference. A few months can be a hell of a difference. So I was fortunate in that respect. But there are a lot of good players. There's too many to mention. Paul and that were the years above me. I used to play with them, the older boys, because we'd play on the Sunday. They'd sometimes play on the Saturday or vice versa. So you'd play there, and then I would go and play with them on the Sunday as well. So it was just bang on for me because I was playing with top players wherever I was looking. The McStays and that came into Celtic Boys Club at that particular time. But the funny thing was, even at that young age, I knew the pressure he represented Celtic. Because with the green blazers on, with the biggest badge, it was like the size of a dartboard on your badge here, Celtic Boys Club badge. The same with the big Celtic bag, the Celtic tie, the grey trousers, the green jackets, as I said. And you're walking up and down Barfield, you're getting on the bus with us. But then you're turned up to games and you're putting the Celtic strip on. And that was slightly different. Because it was anywhere in Glasgow and everywhere. And so we never really played in grass pitches at that particular time. Most of it was ash. And everybody would come round because the Celtic strips were there. And I just felt there was a different sense then. They never ever tell you needed to win. You just knew there was an expectancy to win and what you would represent, even as a young man. And that's something that always stayed with me. And that's why the days of Barfield, I'm delighted to see it's all getting done up now. But their days were something special and I loved every moment of it.
So he's a first team player, Peter. Is that where the camaraderie's built? Is that where the team spirit's built at Barfield?
Without a shadow of a doubt. At that time, that was our training facility. So we'd go to Celtic Park every day. This when you went into the first team, I went in full time at 15. I'd just left school. I went at the cleverest, so that's why I was 15. And all of a sudden, I was on the ground staff with the great Neil Malkin was my boss. Wonderful, wonderful man. And real fun. And like Sione, Paul McStay, great John Sludden, unfortunately I lost John not long ago. So that was the sort of ground staff with a boy called Stevie Jarden from Greenock, a fantastic guy as well. So you'd done all the chores and you watched all the senior players, what they'd done, the Danny McGrains, the Tommy Burnsies, all these guys. I watched them like a hawk, say why are they the best and what do they do different. So it was a training regime, what they'd done after training, and there was no such thing as a gym, and Big Roy Aiken and whatever. But the funny thing was across the Barfield there was Joe's Kitchen. And this is for professionalism and out the road. You know, you'd be getting in there, you'd be filthy and you'd be getting your roll and sausage, but no pasta. You know, it'd be straight after training, you'd be in there getting your roll and sausage, we'd all be sitting round the table, and just the way the cans are now, we'd always say, well, you should have been here and you should have been there with the pepper, slagging each other off. And that is the one thing to this day that I miss more than any. People say, why do you into coaching, managing, whatever? And it was because of the dressing room. The dressing room was so special. And I've had I look through all these guys that I was fortunate enough, and some guys you forget, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, you forget that you played along with, and you just remember them as friends you still speak to at this moment in time, and unfortunately we're seeing them for the wrong reasons at this moment in time, as people have been not well, and unfortunately we've lost a few of the guys that was special to us, and you see them there, and it's just remarkable when you get that sense of feeling and joy when you see them. And I've never lost them. We talked to Derek White the other night there. Derek's been here enough away for 20 years, but I speak to him every single day, whether it's by text, and he sent me a picture today, believe it or not, and it was us doing the Celtic rap.
Oh, brilliant.
You know, we all of us there with this disco sort of gear on and tracksuits and whatever, with hats tucked the wrong way, and I'm just thinking, did that really happen?
Well, let's talk about the Celtic rap here, because...
What year was that?
I think it was spelled wrong.
Well, what year was it? Was it Centenary season?
Yeah, I was going to say 100%.
Yeah, Centenary season.
Right.
And that was something special, let me tell you.
I've seen the pictures.
As I say, we all have a great camaraderie. We still keeping, I was with Frank McAvenny the other week there, you know, and it's just as if you've seen each other yesterday. You know, the conversation that goes on, we can remember things that happened in the dressing room, Barfield, Joe's kitchen, in the dressing room, you know, simple things that people wouldn't believe, the big bath that was in the changing room, which only got stopped because of the AIDS pandemic. I think it was at 85, 86, maybe just a little bit later than that. And we used to get into that bath, you didn't know if there was crocodiles or anything like that, because it was that filthy. And it was garbolic soap, you know, you'd be washing your under your arm, but you'd pass it on to your mate, he'd be washing it somewhere else. And you'd become, but not only that, people would be shaving in it, so you become, bald guys would be coming up with hair. Because everybody had been shaving in it. It was quite surreal, but nobody batted an eyelid. No. We just loved getting in there together. And the football was talked about, whatever you'd done was talked about, and that was your meeting place, and it was such great fun. I never wanted to go home at times. My bus was at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, and I just didn't want to go home. I'd be sitting there at that time, you know, it was right, last to leave, and that's why I get the name the janitor, because I was first in and last to leave, because I've long been in there, and I loved the banter that went on, and as I say, thankfully all the guys are still your mates at this day.
That's great. You've been in a Celtic dressing room, Stephen. You've got to tell us about that as well.
That's what stays in the, what goes on the dressing room stays in the dress, particularly that dressing room. I told you about Martin O'Neill's opening line when I was fortunate enough to play against Man United in the 9th of August 2011, and I paid a few quid to play up front with Henrik Larsson. But the conversation with Martin O'Neill walked in, everybody stopped. And the first thing he said to Lenny was, "Overweight, you're no starting." He looked at Owen Coyle and he said, "You said no to my job, you're no starting." Then he gets to Mo Johnston and he went, "It's a fucking Legends game. Because the tracksuit won't go up the stair." Then he looks at Jerry Butler, the actor. Jerry was my ambassador for All Saints in California. And he went, "Who the f*** are you?" And then Jerry went, "I'm Gerard Butler, the actor." He went, "What the f*** are you doing?" And we might have to do the beeps and that. And he went, "I've been in 300 and I've been in PS Love You." And he said, "If you've not been in Top Gun, son, you're no starting either." And he says to Henrik, "Captain." Henrik said, "Thank you, Gaffer." And he gets to me and he went, "Who are you?" And I said, "The guys paid the money to play up for him." He went, "Any good?" And I was, "That wasn't bad when I was playing against Peter." All the years ago at Barfield, he went, "They get you're no starting." So there's much more to that story which we'll come on to. But you knew right away who the gaffer was, and you also knew straight away the admiration everybody had. And I having played in a few charity games, I always remember in the first football aid game, which was Celtic against Celtic Reserves, and I was bidding against this guy for Celtic number 7, right. And it kept going up and up and up and up, and I'm getting this. I want Celtic number 7 at home, and there was only maybe 200 or 300 folk in the audience, but he kept putting another grand on, kept blah blah blah. I went, right, I'm out, and this boy was the head anaesthetist for children in California, right. And all he wanted to do was walk on the park, take the kick off, and walk off and stand next to Big Billy. And he said, "You made it awfully expensive for me." And we ended up saying, he's flown in for California to pay that amount of money to stand beside Big Billy, and you should have seen him. Big Billy gave him his big long jacket. This guy said, "My life's been made." The head anaesthetist for Children's Hospital in LA, he went, "I felt that size." you know. But
And how did he develop the Celtic love then?
I think he was originally for Royston, but you know, and there's so many stories when you know. I remember.
Was there not a young boy, the young boy David?
Aye,
Can you remember him?
I do, actually, in the Celtic.
yes,
A young boy
I
David.
remember him.
for Peru.
That's correct. Well, we were on the Esther Ranson show.
Wow.
Yep.
The double winning team and the Lisbon Lions were invited onto the Esther Ranson show. That's Life, is it?
Aye.
It was called at that particular time, and we get invited on because he loved the Lisbon Lions, and Billy was our manager at that particular time. So we were on prime time television because that was the most watched programme at that particular time. But it was a surgeon who had grown an affiliation with Celtic, and he just couldn't believe it.
And his name, Mr. Chettles.
I think
It was, and do you know what? It's one of the mad stories. I met his son years later, and his son's a great friend of mine. And his father had, when Parliament John Aitken passed away, John, God rest his soul, had beat cancer 3 times in his 30s. He come back in his 40s, and he gave the picture that Billy signed saying my best ever Celtic team on that night, and he put it up, and I've got it. You know, and I met Mr. Chettles, but another strange story as well, as these things come back to tell you. Unfortunately, Andrea, my partner's partner's brother, was involved in a collision with a bus, and it was him that had to take his arm off after the collision with the bus. And so this kind of small world story, all centering around one thing. And I've said good people gravitate towards each other, and most of them happen to be Celtic supporters.
I'd agree with that. You know, when you're talking about you knew he was a gaffer, right? So if you think about the Celtic managers you play under, did they all have that presence, Peter?
Yeah, I think two for me probably stood out was Davy and Billy. Davy Hay and Billy McNeil, the great Billy McNeil. Billy, just everything that he touched for Celtic, he seemed to be at the forefront of it, you know. Probably out with Jock Stein, the great Jock Stein. The next one I look at in that sort of line would be Billy, because of the way he captained, represented Celtic. Years later, when he walked into the room, you know, just had that aura about him, you know, that stature, the way he lifted the European Cup on his own. He just had that presence about him, and the respect he had from his teammates, that great, wonderful team, the Lisbon Lions. And for me, that says enough. I was fortunate enough to be in a dressing. For me then, as a young man, growing up, 15, you're in the dressing room, Billy's there the first time, obviously. They signing me as an S for him. One of the greatest pictures I've got is when I was about 12 years of age and I get Player of the Year with the boys club, and it was in the old Plaza Ballroom. And it's a great Jock Stein and Billy McNeil handed me the trophy, and it was on the front page of the papers because I think it's the first time that they'd met each other since Jock had became the Scotland manager, Billy had became the Celtic manager, and that was a picture that was all over the newspapers at that particular time, so it was front page news, and it was me getting the trophy off both of them at that particular time. So obviously wonderful heroes of mine, and as I say, I look at them, Davy Hay just had this Celticness about him as well, you know, you knew what you had to represent. You would never say they were coaching gurus in the respect of that, they just knew players. That was the biggest thing I team with them. And you've got to remember, in our time, every day you could be sold or let go and bring somebody else in to replace you. So that was the pressure on you as a player. That's why they talk about Barfield. Barfield was like a boxing ring every day, you know, because everybody was so competitive, you know, and I mean competitive. I mean, we'd be fisticuffs, and 2 seconds later we'd be cuddling each other, walking down the road or jogging down together, talking about the weather, after one's got a black eye and the nose bleeding and all that sort of thing. But that was the way it was, because we all were desperate to play, you know. And the Saturday, the squads weren't big, you know, and if you get kicked in training and the leg was hanging off, you just walked. You never even went down, you just didn't feel no pain because you were scared in case it gave the manager an excuse to leave you out. But that all came from, as I say, talking about Big Billy and Davy for me, because they'd lived it for me. They'd lived it, they'd done, I'd supported them, I'd watched them as a kid, and that was the ultimate. Now all of a sudden, they were selecting me, Davy feeling that I was good enough to represent Celtic at Ibrox in my debut. No, he hardly ever trained with the first team, just to say, son, if I didn't think you could do it, you wouldn't be playing. And that was it, nothing else. No, do this, do that, do the next thing. Just go out and do what you do. I was fortunate enough to have the great Danny McGrains and all these guys playing along with me, but as I said, that was the way it was. no airs and graces with him, a wee puff at the cigar now and again, and he'd just tell you, and you knew with the look that Davy gave you, if you were doing all right, if you weren't doing all right, but he was a fantastic man as well, but they represented Celtic in a certain way that I always tried to live that way, and I say it to this day that you've always got to remember, because people respect you as an ex-Celt and being a Celt, for the rest of your days you're a Celt, so you've got to always remember that what you're doing or what you're saying or the way you act, it goes back to not just you and your family, but also Celtic Football Club, which is obviously a massive part of my life, and you've always got to remember that, and that's the things that I always tried to live off they guys, because I know that was the way that they lived their life, that they were always respecting that. And as I say, thankfully at time a lot of other managers came, and as I say, not everybody I got on well with, you know, in the respect to that. They all picked me, which was great. I think they all knew that I would give everything for them, whether I liked them or didn't like them. I'd run through a brick wall for them. That's why I always say it's not about the manager that's there, it's not the name in the back of the jersey, it's the badge in the front you're always representing. And you've always got to remember that. Players will come and go, managers will come and go, but the support is always there. So that's what you're always representing. You can have your fallouts with anybody else, but once you're on that pitch and you pull that jersey on, there's only one group of people you're representing. That's all the people that stand there and everybody else that supports you throughout the world.
How competitive was the Friday games against each other?
It depended on one you wanted. I was only later years it became Scotland, England. I will say when it was
What was it? Who eats fish on a Friday?
There was a lot of that went on. And if you remember the old Rangers in there, the low wall, you know, and where the wee blue disabled cars used to be, you know, so you used to get booted over this on a Friday, because the only thing was, it was like a boxing match, because you had to wear gutties, as they called them then, the old training shoes. It was gutties, because it wasn't the sambas or that you're getting, it was actual gutties, and we'd all wear them, so when they get a bad injury. But that didn't stop it, let me tell you, and it was so competitive, and more so if the manager had named the team. If the manager had named the team, you were fuming if you weren't playing. You know, so you knew the guy you were saying, well, I'm in his position, I'm going to dance out this way to the left-hand side or the right-hand side here. But I think that was the reason you've got to fight to survive. And I always looked upon it that way. And I don't know if it was something you have in your mind or it grows with you. You knew what you had to do. They were your teammates. But it was either you or him. I've always said that. It was either you or him. I loved them all to death, I must admit. I'd have done anything for any of them. But I knew it was either me or him. So at the end of the season, if somebody was going to get transferred or sold or whatever, I wanted to be them, no me. And that's what you always done. And people used to laugh when boys used to come in. And I used to laugh. Later years when Paul was obviously in, I said, midfielder gets signed, I used to say, it must be to replace you. So we had like, you know, so it can't be replace me, you know, and sort of thing, you know. But anybody in midfield that came in, the boys used to all be killing themselves, because I used to wait to them at the door. They'd walk in if it was a midfielder and say, all the best in the reserves. You know? I was like, oh, gee, she's not going to replace me. You know, but I used to say that to Paul, but I said, I must be to replace you, boy. You know, so we're getting your finger out, you know. But great memories, and things I would, even through the tough times, I would not change one moment. Of course, I'd love to win more medals. Of course, I'd love to have been in a more successful team. But that was the way it was planned out for me, and as I said, I wouldn't change it for the world.
Peter, you've spoken about Davy Hay and Billy McNeill, two managers from my kind of childhood as well. Then we entered the kind of darker period of the club, and the managers that you played under were Liam Brady and Lou McCarry. What was it that changed under they guys then? Because you've got the legendary figures, of course, Davy Hay and McNeill as players, but I mean, Lou McCarry had a Celtic background, and although Liam Brady had never played for the club, you know, he had a Celtic state of mind. Why did it not work out for these guys?
One, I think they were a bit unfortunate. I mean, Lou was a bit of a surprise in the respect to that, because he'd done really well at Stoke and wonderful player for Celtic, Manchester United, you name it. It was just a different dynamic. It just didn't work at that particular period. The team probably wasn't good enough at that particular time with good players, but the team wasn't good enough. Same with Liam. As I say, unbelievable footballer, you know, had unbelievable ideas in his head, but I felt everybody couldn't be Liam Brady. That's very, very difficult, you know, and he never had a big background in coaching at that particular time, and listen, Celtic's a different animal. I don't care who you are, and Liam was with Juventus, all that sort of stuff, and a wonderful, wonderful player. But Celtic is a different beast when you've got to play well and win, plus the fact that Rangers had better players at that particular time in the respect that we've got to be fair. They were spending big money on the England captain and all this at that particular time. Terry Butchers, players that had just won the league with Everton, Trevor Stephen, Gary Stephen, all these guys were coming in, and there was other top quality players coming in. We understand the reasons why. I think there was a ban obviously in European football, so you could afford to get them up to Scotland as soon as had that pull at that particular time. And listen, and I've taken away all the stuff off the pitch and finance people talk about nowadays. At that particular time, they were very, very good players, and it was a real, real tough team. But Rangers, I don't mean weren't the problem for us, because the great Andy Gorham, God rest him, Tommy Bunn said on his gravestone that's what he's going to get. Andy Gorham broke my heart. And he was right, because he was unbelievable. And in some games, and the Rangers boys admitted that as well, they said if we played you 15 times, we're probably 10, 11, you deserve to beat us. But Gorham was just something different.
Don't forget the other ones with the black outfits as well. Several times that season.
Oh, George
Cadetti. Oh.
We were in the Broomland that night, Tommy, I'm pretty sure.
And I know, Peter, so you're such a gentleman. I love you to bits because you're a fantastic ambassador for Celtic. I think you just ooze respect. You demand respect because you've lived it, and you've always got that badge. Whatever you do with Celtic, out with Celtic, I just think you're a fantastic human being, individual, probably a lot to do with your faith as well, the fact that you're a very religious man. So I love all of that. However, as a fan, you've made the point about the wonderful players. I've got to make the point that they cheated. They cheated because they were getting those players and they weren't paying for them. They weren't doing what everybody else is doing. They weren't paying their taxes. They weren't paying the face painters. And from our point of view, although you respect the players and their abilities, what was going on off the park did matter because they sullied football. They took football into a sewer, and they should pay for that big time, in my opinion. So I know you're far too much a gentleman to make those types of points, but from my point of view, I get angry when I look back at that period, that, as you call it, the dark period as it was for us, because we lost 9 titles in a row, but they were cheating, and I just wish some of them had the balls and the honour to actually put their honour up and say, you're right, we did cheat.
Yeah, but I can only go in respect as a footballer. You're playing against them, and that's the only way I would ever judge them. The one thing I would say about these 6 years, I'll never make an excuse. We weren't good enough to beat them.
Yeah.
So they're top quality players. And a 1-1, yeah, we could hold our own against them, no problem. Over the season, it wasn't just against Rangers we lost our leagues or cup ties. It was other teams we lost. We could beat the Partick Thistle, not no disrespect at that time, at Hampdens and all that. But people forget we were at Hampden for a year, which was the most toxic year in the respect that I probably played at Celtic. Not because of that, because nobody wanted to go. It was a nightmare for the players. We're turning up to Celtic Park for your home game, and then you're getting bussed to Hampden. Every game was like an away game. You lose Celtic Park, which is your spiritual home. All these things. I never really talk about that because I don't want to make an excuse. That was the way it was at that particular time. I go back and I'll still say, we talk about Mo Johnston, who was a fantastic striker for Celtic. We should never have lost Mo Johnston to Rangers. Whether that's Rangers' fault or Celtic's fault, we should never have lost him. If you lose it in Manchester United, Liverpool, Manchester City nowadays, that's fine. But we could never and should never have lost to Rangers. And that was a big problem for me, more than anything else. You cannot lose him there. And for me, there is no doubt in my mind, if he was in our group, we'd have won even through that period. We'd have won through it. We just never had that quality, him, at that particular time. And I thought that was going to be an unbelievable sight. You seen the lift we got when we won the cup final?
Yes.
We drew Cup final 89.
But we never seem to build from a position of strength. And it brings us right forward to this day, which I'm sure we'll touch on as we have to go. And Tommy and I, as devout fans, having lived through that period, we lived through that period only to, and I echo his words, only to realise that the playing field as we knew is never level from a referee's point of view.
Well, that's
but
right.
It certainly wasn't level from a taxpayer's point of view.
Right.
And ultimately was you take Walter Smith at his word when he said we were able to afford players we otherwise could not have afforded. That's the Lance Armstrong of the footballing world. And when you have this conversation with Rangers supporters, and I tend not to have too many in my life, but when I do have this conversation, they shy away from it. And they shy away from the fact that, it's undeniable what we went through. And I probably, if therapy was around in those days, I would have overdosed on it.
Stephen, that's why I've got when you mentioned a couple of managers there, I can't let that wee episode pass without mentioning that although Lou wasn't as successful as a manager as he perhaps could have been, fantastic player, and he gave us one of those brilliant songs. Lou.
You've sung that twice now, by the way.
I've got another one.
Skip to my Lou, man. I just love that one. I love it.
He's also mentioned in a festival song that I quite like as well.
Brilliant.
Round about the Christmas period.
Brilliant.
But we'll move on for that quite swift.
Celtic fans are so creative with their tunes, but you brought him up, Peter, so we're going to have to speak about wee Mo, right? You brought him up, okay? You mentioned him, Le Petit Merde, as he was called by Not The View. Ex-teammate, you shared a bath with this guy. How could he do it? And as you say, when it looked as though he was coming back, the lift it gave Celtic, the fans, we've gone out there and bust the treble. We'll come back to you saving Joe Miller's skin with his celebration. When did you find it as a player? And then how does that affect, because I'm guessing you've got that camaraderie, that bond with an ex-teammate. How does it affect that?
Yeah, it was a massive blow. It was quite interesting because travelling down to the cup final, I'm sitting with Mo on the bus. So he's come down to stay overnight with us before we play Rangers. So all the pictures, everybody's seen them, all been done, whatever. So sitting on the bus and we're just learning about France and whatever. Coming back, and brilliant to have him back. Whatever. I said, everything done? He said, yeah, all the pictures. He said, just a bit of paperwork that's to be done. Because I think Mo had bought himself out his contract, and I think that's where the issue came with Celtic. I think he'd bought himself out. So to be perfectly honest, he was owed the money. Mm-hmm. So he'd paid the transfer so he could get out, so he could come to Celtic. Obviously, there was an issue that the club weren't doing. He said, no, you just agreed that. And I think that was that was the major issue. But everything was sight sealed and delivered in the respect of that. He was desperate to come. Told us there was only one bit of paperwork still to be done, and that was hopefully going to be done on the Monday or the Tuesday. So fine. Played in the cup final. Thankfully we won the game, as you say, wee Joe's goal. I'm in the Scotland squad for the Rouse Cup coming up. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember if it was Turnberry or whatever we were staying in. And we're going to training. We always trained on the Sunday after the cup final or whatever when you turn up with the national team. So we're going to training. But I always remember, we talked about Big Billy, God rest him. I remember him walking across the car park. And I'm not sure if it was Turnberry, but he always had that honour, as you say, in the chest out, his shirt and tie and his suit and that on. And I thought, that's unusual for the gaffer to be down here in the respect of, he didn't really like that. If it was a national team, I don't want to be near that because that's the national players and the national manager's job, not my players. I don't really like to get involved. But there was obviously an issue with the situation with Mo. So I seemed to get away, but he was sort of stormed away. He always had that walk anyway, but he sort of stormed away. You could just see that didn't look a bit, but never in a million years am I thinking. So I'm on the bus and just sitting there and Cloister's there. And Mo next comes Scotland 6 next season. He said, oh, we're going to terrorise you next season, mate, man. I said, oh, I know where. And I'm thinking he's talking about Mo and myself, like, you know. I said, oh, I know, the wee man's back, get a few goals. She's like, no, me and him. I went like that. Aye, right, no, just take it. Pinch of salt, you know. Then Mo said to his letter, listen, I'll be coming to the Rangers.
Peter.
And but I still didn't believe him. I didn't believe it till I seen it on the television. Mm-hmm. I still didn't believe it because I couldn't believe it. And I still say to this day, it's brilliant by Rangers because I put the shoe in the other foot, and that's what I always try and do. If it was us doing it, I'd have loved it. Mm-hmm. You know, I'd have loved every moment of it. But it was a massive, massive blow to us because he was a wonderful striker. No matter what people say, he was a wonderful striker for us. He had an unbelievable, people say what he was like off the pitch or whatever. He was unbelievable in the training ground, he was unbelievable in the dressing room. More importantly, he was unbelievable on the pitch. He'd scored goals from nothing. And he's proven that. And as I say, he was a real good guy. And we got everybody on. He was very popular in the dressing room. So everything for us was perfect. But when this happened, I never spoke to him. I don't know how many years. I booted him a few times on the pitch. You know, one of the famous ones I got women sent off just after charging the wall, after tripping him up and then giving the free kick away and then charging the wall. I was like that boy for Zaire in the World Cup, wasn't years ago. He runs at the ball and boots the ball away.
That's just the emotions running wild.
I was thinking it was Mo. And I just ran out the lawn. I was like, what are you doing? They get sent off, but thankfully the Rangers boys get sent off after it. But that situation like that, but it was just so surreal, you know. I never thought I'd live through it because obviously I'd supported Alfie Conn and whatever. Yeah. But Alfie came back, we sang all the songs, you know, and there was no problem. But just the way the Mo situation with the jersey and the pictures taken, everything done. If he'd have come straight back to Rangers, yes, it would still been an issue, but I don't think the way it was done. The way it was done. Yep. But I also think it should never have been allowed to happen because the issue going with Mo at this particular time, because years later, I come back here with Tony, back to Celtic with Tony as one of his assistants here. We went to Canada and Mo was working, I think it was Toronto he was in at the time. Mo was working, it was the first time I'd seen him in all the years. First time I'd sat down, the twos went out for about 10 hours. The first 5 I can remember, the last 5 I can you know, so when we said the first 5 hours was serious, you know, that was full on. It was a cup of tea. After that first 5 hours, the next 5 weren't so good. And I still, in my heart of hearts, he was really, really disappointed this Celtic thing didn't happen in the respect it, but it was impossible from his point of view for it to happen because they knew about the issue anyway. I'm not giving a get out of jail card. That was the scenario he told me about, and I can only take it as that. And it was ironic when I was over there, I bumped into his two boys, one of the Celtic strip on and one of the Rangers strip on at that particular time, and I was kicking both of them. But it was great, and as I say, he was a fantastic guy, and I had a lot of time for him. As I say, I don't think it'll ever happen. Well, it happens now with the Kenny Millers, and that's obviously done it a few times and whatever. But at that particular time, that was something. Especially we just won the cup. Aye. We're all on a high, but seemingly by all accounts, as soon as they'd already said to him, the smile had already been their face, the other side of their face, but this time next week or something, he'd already made the comment.
To Joe, I think it was Joe. What was it? Enjoy your celebration, we'll not be laughing next week or something.
That's right. So there's always these things, and listen, I've got to be fair, devil's advocate in the respect to that. I'd have loved it to have been us sending a quality play like that. But it should never have been allowed to happen.
It's funny how pet we are. Even this morning, somebody put the video on X of that brilliant goal, St Mirren goal.
Yeah, absolutely. Right?
Oh, I mean, absolutely outstanding. And as I shared, I think it may have been Acsom that put it up actually, and I'm sharing it saying, absolutely superb goal, absolutely brilliant. Never mind who scored that. Just remember it was a superb team goal. But we're just so petty. I can't bring myself to
it was a JFK moment. You remember where you were, you know, and I know you would never have done that, and neither would anyone else that's sitting here. Maybe he was badly advised. I loved him to bits, and I saw an interview years later, and he's only ever been on the TV. It was in Football Focus, and he said, you know, if you reflect on that, who do you support now? And he said, I'm still a Celtic supporter. And I went, hold on, no to our level, you're not. And I'm a wee bit like yourself. I'm not sure I'm in a forgiving mood. As much as I might have to go to confession.
But we're not supporters.
You're not.
I've got to try and play that one. Because you played along with him, I shared the dressing room, I know what he spoke like, I know what he'd done. Listen, no problem. But you tip your hat to Rangers for having a guile to go and do it, knowing that they've found something. There's a chink there, knowing that we're desperate for this guy, who I believe, even in the dark days that we talk about, we'd have still won trophies with him.
Aye.
There's no doubt in my mind that. Because he'd have nicked a goal out of nothing and won us a game where we were drawing games or losing games that we should never have. We've dominated but still lost 1-0 or something like that. He'd have put the ball in the back of the net for us. And I was very fortunate enough to play with unbelievable strikers during that. Because people say the dark times. You talk Charlie Nicholas's.
Oh yeah.
You know, you get right through it. Brian McClare, Mo Johnston, Andy Walker, great striker. Mark McGee's, all top strikers in Scotland.
And the best of them.
I was going to say Macca for me was the best all round because he had a combination of them all. You know, he had the Charlie tricks and skills and whatever movement. Tough as teak.
What a work rate he had.
I bet that's what we're saying. Tough as teak, but could score goals. Physical. You know,
That's a
good
tremendous accolade you've given.
No, but honestly,
I mean, when you mention that personnel and you put Mark at the top, what an accolade.
Man Hoydon, George Cadet, you know, Tom, the Canio, if you want to call him as a
Where's
striker.
Jackanoski in this list, Peter?
Well, I'm saying,
Is it victorious?
He was the most good looking one. my wife loves him.
I think it was just a name of the film accent.
I always say to Mark every time I'm in his company, and I'm blessed to call him a pal, he's the best that I've ever seen in 48 years apart from Henrik.
Right.
The best Celtic centre forward I've ever seen, apart from Henrik, because he did have everything. But you look, if you look at the stewardship of the club, and the last time I was here and fortunate enough to be talking about it, under the Celtic board now, and under Fergus, that wouldn't have happened. What happened with Mo?
No, you're right.
Because the professionalism of the board now and since Fergus stepped into the breach would not have allowed Rangers to have the upper hand. And I said this to somebody yesterday. If you take out the cheating years, there has been total domination since the mid-60s. And fundamentally, a lot of that goes down to the stewardship of the board. You know, I would cross swords with a lot of them in a lot of different ways about having a Lisbon in our lifetime. And you know, that's our call to action now. You know, we need a Lisbon in our lifetime, but more importantly as well, what we also kind of need is to give them the wee credit they deserve in the stewardship of the club since the dark days.
Yeah, but listen, we all know that at that particular time. That's why, and sometimes you get criticism for saying it, but as soon as coming in, what way they done it doesn't matter. It does matter, of course it does. But at that particular time, I think it put a rocket up us. That's the one thing I look back now. We started thinking about the stadium then.
Yeah.
Okay, well, 10 years after Rangers in the respect of the stadium, what way they done it, I don't know. I can't get into that politics about it. But I'm only talking about that. As soon as coming in, better players were coming. You could start to attract players that higher calibre to Celtic if you could afford them. We're still in the problems. There's non-league players in England getting more money than the Premier League players.
Also, let's put something else on the table. They also started to sign Catholics. Which was a stupid and horrible, bigoted policy they had for many, many years. But then they started to bring in people of a different religion who were some of the best players. You know what I mean? And I had somebody put up recently the reaction to them signing Mo Johnston.
Oh, it was fantastic.
But it was.
You look back, that's what you laugh about it.
But it was horrible, wasn't it? You know, going to Rangers. Oh no, I'm burning scarves. It was absolute. I mean, I get brought up. You get brought up in that. It was horrible that you go to a particular school. Oh, we're not signing you. It was totally and utterly racist and bigoted. And for whatever criticisms you would have of Graham, at least he come in and challenge that particular piece
Can I pick up on this, right? Graham Souness, the first player he tried to sign was Liam Brady, right? He then asked your pal McAvenny. Right. What would Peter Grant have said if he asked you, Peter?
Absolutely not. No, but of course, that was just the way it was. But that's what I'm saying. It's for me, because it's difficult. You've been part of it inside, as in playing. You know, I can only look at it from a football point of view in the respect of the players I was playing against were better. They were competitive, but they were good players. You know, you think of the Laudrups, the Gascoignes, the McCoys, the Gerrard, who I think was the hardest opponent out of them all. And if he hadn't had a bad injury, he could have played with anybody. And I never really played against him because he always thought he played on that left-hand side. But it was always difficult because I'm much in my middle man. But he's running off the side there and behind you. He had the great football intelligence. It was a horrible injury he had. But you've got to remember during that period as well, and especially the early, Aberdeen were very good.
Yeah.
Hibs were very good. Hearts were very good. Hearts, the year we won the league at, obviously at Paisley. The run they'd went on, was it 22 games?
Massive.
You know,
massive.
But wonderful players, John Robertson. See, John Robertson could have played for Celtic because he was a goal scorer. Robbo could have played for Celtic with no problem. He'd have scored 50 goals because he had unbelievable talent. He had Mackay, he had Bowman, all that.
Cahoon.
Yeah, but really,
Celtic were released.
But really good players, you know. And you're thinking all the games were competitive. Now the squads are too big. Because the players that are getting kept here would all be playing for the other clubs, which would make them all stronger. But because you've got so many players, you've got young players, you've got 9 on the bench in a reserve game. You've got 9 in the first team plus some sitting in the stand. So there's 18 players not playing on the Saturday, for talk's sake. And you're thinking, they'd all be playing everywhere else. making the team stronger. Aberdeen, the successful Aberdeen team, was the Bobby Calder tournament used to get played in Glasgow here. He was the chief scout of Aberdeen. But that was the biggest competition in British football, for youth football. And they used to come down and scout all the players. That's why you get the McLeishes, the Millers. That's why a lot of the boys were all Glasgow boys that played in that really successful team, because they all got picked up in Glasgow.
Yeah.
And that was what was done then. Now there's too many people not playing. That's why we'll have a dearth of talent. Not because of a lack of quality in players, just because they're not playing and nobody gets to see them play.
Please indulge me in this, Paul John, because I've asked all the guests and I need you to tell me your answer. You've just talked about people not playing. Reserve team football used to make sure that everybody was playing every week, and you used to have people coming back for injuries, you used to have young people coming through. Peter, why is it all there?
The biggest problem is the amount of subs you've got now. You can make five on a Saturday, but you've got 9 on there, is it? 9 you've got on the bench. So you think of that, but you're even having 9 on the bench at a youth team game now. And for me, I would rather, why do you not have 2 teams?
Yeah.
You know, why do you know, right, you've got 9 subs, we've got 9 subs, right, we'll have a 9v9 over there. It doesn't matter at that level. You can have 11v11, but then see that other pitch, see all these subs, they can play over there, see if we want to switch them. I'd be doing something like that.
Yeah. Would you bring back reserve team football?
But the only thing I would say about reserve team football, you've got to remember, we won the league. I think one of the years we won the league, I think we used about 17 players, 16 players, I think. So it was about 16 or 17 players we used. So you've got to remember that. The reserve team, when I came in, I was going for under 16 at the boys' club. That's all I've been up to. The first year we won the BP Youth Cup. That was the first time it was ever run. We beat Aberdeen, Dundee United and Rangers in the final at Celtic Park. And that was the first time there was any youth competition. But we were still under 16 in the respect to that. So you went for under 16, I'd be turning up to play the reserves on the Saturday.
Yeah.
But the reserves wasn't fully old men as people think they were. So, say the first team of the squad 18. You'd have 2 goalkeepers. At my time it was Big Peter Latchford and Pat Barnum. So Peter or Pat would play for the first team and Peter and Pat would play in the reserve team.
Okay.
14 would go with the first team, so it'd be 2 substitutes, maybe with 1, depending. If it was a Glasgow game, nobody would go with them, it'd just be the 13 that was going.
Right.
Because the other one would play. We'd play at the same time, everybody would play, because then everybody would be training hard on the Monday again. But it meant everybody had played a game of football.
Yes.
You know, in the respect of, but the thing is, you had to earn to get into that. If you weren't good enough to get into the reserve team, you were on the bench or no stripped.
Right.
As simple as that. It wasn't, we need to give him minutes, we need to give him minutes, we need to give him 5 minutes, we need to give... No. You play well, son, you play. That's what it was in the days. I know it's completely changed nowadays. You know, I'm not saying for the better, because I see goalkeepers taking cramp now. You know, so that drives me nuts.
It's all our 90s, DC United.
They keep saying to me that, they keep saying to me that they're fitter, and I'm thinking, what? We're playing 5 games a week, you know, sort of thing. But that's by the by. But we've got too many kids not playing, but then they're judged. And that's what I'm saying. For me, I think everybody should be playing every week. You know, guys should be playing every week. And unfortunately, at this moment in time, they're not.
Peter, everybody knows about your playing career and your coaching career, but not many know about your acting career and your starring role in EastEnders. You want to tell us about it?
Well, I never knew it was in EastEnders, and it was quite ironic. I used to go down the street and people used to say to me, "You're in EastEnders." Bear in mind, I don't watch soaps or anything like that, so I'm thinking, I knew EastEnders were a big thing at the time. And I'm thinking, EastEnders? Then talked about, what's EastEnders? Oh, it's like some thing in London, it's a new programme it's on, a bit like Coronation Street and whatever. Okay, right, I'm in it. So I'm thinking, oh, must be a good looking boy in it, you know what I mean? But little did I know there was 2 boys in it, there's one called Grant in it, and I thought, oh, that's maybe the reason. But no, this wasn't the reason. So I'm thinking, what can be the reason? But it kept happening, I swear to God, for about 6 weeks. But then I get the backdrop out, obviously after it. What had happened was, there was Dirty Den and Ange, this husband and wife, just correct me if I'm wrong, and he'd ended up getting put in jail. But they were the 2 seemingly superstar actors in it at this particular time. And they were always the big news. So he'd get put in jail. And when he was in jail, he used to always be getting sort of interviewed when his part in the programme was he was standing at his door of his cell. but you could just see his bed. So that's what for about 6 weeks, this was a big story by all accounts. So, me as I do, any of this, then I realised why this all happened. It's not to do with me being in EastEnders, it was not to do with Grant, it was the fact there was only one poster on his wall, and it wasn't a page 3 pin-up. It was a Celtic player down on his knees from Ibrox, and this was the only picture he'd on his wall. So wherever I went, people used to say, "You're in EastEnders," but I'm thinking acting, whatever. No, it's because this was the poster out. Used to have the football magazines at that particular time, and this was the centre spread, and this is the only one he had on his wall. So for EastEnders, I was in EastEnders for 6 weeks.
Never get fantastic.
Dirty Danes poster.
That's definitely one of the production team, isn't it?
That must be, Tommy.
Let's dress this up there. Let's appear. Let's sell up. I don't really ever.
Oh yeah, I'd only one picture. There was only one picture because I didn't watch it, but I knew these were two big stars, and I didn't realise that's what it was. So that's why everybody says
we're in the Brimley Road that day, very proud of you. And then we thought, Granny.
Well, the good thing is, people keep saying it wasn't my goal. God rest him, Big Billy. I always, what I'd done that Monday morning, I went straight in his office, and the gaffer would always write up who scored for the Saturday, whatever. Saying Grant, that was good enough for me. Anything he said went. So I thought I'd beat Terry Butcher for pace that particular day and got my studs on it. But people forget that I had an easier chance, very similar. Just before it, I should have scored, but the keeper made a save, very similar to the goal. So that was my disappointment.
We're happy to give you the goal as well, Peter.
Absolutely.
We're talking about some of the strikers you played with, and not an out-and-out striker, but an offensive player, Paolo Di Canio. Your manager, Tommy Burns, thought it was a good idea, Peter, to marry him up with you so that you could show him a bit of Glasgow life and let him know the fabric of Celtic Football Club. How did that treat you? How was that for you?
Well, it was quite bizarre because we've spoke about it prior and Daily Walking. So we go, and I can't remember if it was Holland or Germany, pre-season, usual. Gaffer pulls me, "You're in with the Canio." Bear in mind, me and Paul had been roommates for about 14 years. So I'm like, "Sorry." They went, "You're in with the Canio. You need to tell him about Celtic." I went, "Hold on a minute. He can't speak English, and neither can I." You know what I mean? I said, "I don't know if this is what a gaffer," sort of thing. He's like, "No, you're getting there." I said, "Oh, come on, it's always me and Paul and whatever, He's like, "No, you need to get in there. You need to give him this Celtic background and tell him about Celtic." I said, "But how am I going to explain that?" Genuinely, he can hardly speak a word there. So that was fine. So I'm going back down the stair and Neely's waiting, and he's laughing. It's like, "There's your bag, son, number 6. I was number 6. Paolo was number 7. That's with the training kit in, And I'd said to Paolo, "You go up the stairs. There's the room key." Should tell him there is the room key.
Because if you speak slow, I don't understand.
I thought it was good Italian for me. So I'm giving "here is your room key," So Paolo's looking as if I was cracked, So I sent him up the stair. I don't send him up the stair, goes up the stair to him. So waiting the kit for Neely. Neely's laying all the gear out. Says, "Yours, son, there's yours." So I go up to the room, and as I get to the room, so it's a towel, it's not a bag, it's towels with all your kit in, 2 sets. So I'm trying to get in the door, so I managed to open the door, and when you get into the toilet, the room, the toilet's either on your right or your left. So I walk in, it's on my left-hand side, just as I've opened the door. But just as I've done that, I've looked in, and this Adonis is there, shaving, no his chin, everywhere apart from his chin, he's got shaving foam on. So I'm looking, and I just gave it, and just continued to walk. That was as much as I can say. I don't think I even had a bag at that particular time for putting shaving stuff in. You just, what went you had was your toothbrush. All of a sudden I'm seeing this guy who looks like an Adonis, but with all this shaving foam over his chest, his legs, and whatever else you want to say, shaving away. And I'm like, forget that. So I've put his kit on his bed, I've taken my kit back down the stair, and I went to the gaffer. No effing chance. No chance. What do you mean? What do you mean? I said, "That guy's up the stair, shaving." Oh, I was like that. I said, no, his face. Tommy's killing himself. He said, no, you're in. And I'm like, no, I can't, Gaffer. I said, it's impossible. She said, no, you're in with him. So I've got to get back up to him. So I got up to him and I went like, Paolo, just stop there.
What did you call him?
Paolo.
Oh, Paolo. I thought you said Paolo.
Maybe after it. So I went like, Paolo, what do you do? I said, me, hairy arse Scotsman. You shaving the body. And he's looking at me and only trying to work out what I'm trying to say to him. He's like, what are you doing? And he's like, and he looks at me with that sort of, a couple of words of English, he turns it to me. No. Me, aerodynamic. I'm like, maybe that's why I'm slow. Everything with that. The next day I'm like, but I'm like, oh, for God's sake. But I just get worse. Listen, talent, wow, what a player. If you talk about it and you put in encapsulate a Celtic player, Celtic one, he's excited and have everything, that wee bit of maverick and all that, but he'd all that. He'd all that. You know, Theo Schneider's taking the ball at the Ergen Runham with the gold boots on up at Aberdeen. Celtic Park when beating 5-0 George Cadetti's first goal, when they blew the airwaves off on Radio 5 Live, where we were all, it was one of the games, everybody played exceptionally well that night. But it was a team, the only team in Celtic's history probably ever, that'll ever get clapped off at the end of the season for winning nothing. Because they were good to watch, and that was down to a big part of him. You know, he was an entertainer in that respect, but a wonderful player, fantastic professional, unbelievable physique. And we forget all the work he'd put in, but he was an unbelievable talent, a typical, iconic, I would say, Celtic type of player that the fans always love. You know,
fans are for
absolutely.
As soon as you get the ball, everybody's after.
Absolutely,
because you know something's going to happen.
Coming to the game, even as a player, coming into the game, we could feel excited with the supporters.
Yeah.
You know, and as I say, we never won anything, but it was great to watch. And as I say, at that particular time, I always remember going on the pitch after and saying, this will be the first and the last this will ever happen.
Yep. Yeah.
You know, and it's just a pity for different reasons that he never stayed longer.
And he was aerodynamic.
Oh, absolutely.
Peter Grant.
I was still never was aerodynamic.
Thanks for joining us on A Celtic State of Mind.
Pleasure.
Brilliant.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thanks again for joining us on A Celtic State of Mind. Join us again next week, where we will be speaking to a Celtic legend about their memories from Barfield to the Barrowlands.